Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Spiritual Dessert. I am Pastor Michael from The Current in Naples, Florida. Thanks for joining me this afternoon here on Facebook Live. Spiritual Dessert is meant to be an open discussion forum. So if you have questions about religion in general, about feeling a spiritual pull in the 21st century, about postmodern religion, progressive Christianity, please go ahead and type them into the message box at the bottom of the screen, and I'll answer them in real time if I can. If something requires a little research, then we'll go do that, and I'll answer again later. And if you're watching this after the fact, please feel free to comment as well and let me know what you think about the topics that we're discussing here. The Current is a progressive Christian community. We examine what it means to follow Jesus with a pretty critical eye toward both Scripture and his teachings. We feel that it's important to follow his teachings in service to one another. In view of that, we try to open our community to all people. Everybody's welcome at The Current to just come and worship with us, to come and chit-chat with us, or to come and serve in the food pantry that serves the community at large as well. Until we get some questions happening, I'll just go ahead and recap, as I have been, what we've been discussing at The Current this week. Well, Sunday was the first Sunday of Advent, and as we enter the Advent season, our theme this year is going to be the illuminating Christ. What does it mean to celebrate the light in our world? The light exemplified in Jesus especially, and then what does that light mean in our own lives, either the light of Jesus or the light that Jesus exemplifies as we practice trying to connect to that God light as well. How does that present itself in our own lives and in our actions and our interactions? And then how do we practice sort of staying in tune with this light, with the light of God, so that throughout Advent and throughout our lives we can help to spread the compassionate light of love that Jesus exemplifies. So this week we started off by talking about the light within. Jesus says that the kingdom of heaven is within. And I have always thought of Jesus as a guru, sort of as a Buddha, somebody who points to the Godhead within. And because I have always worked with both Jesus and Buddha and their teachings, I have found great synergies between the two. So to kick off Advent, I thought it would be fun to invite a friend of ours from the Zen in the Arts Center here in Naples to speak about the Buddhist perspective of going within, and then how that relates to Jesus's idea of God within. And then throughout Advent, we'll be talking about how once we sort of ignite that inner light or connect to that inner light, how that then affects the way we relate to our families, to our community, and to the rest of the world. So Sensei Lori couldn't be here today, but I'm going to kind of recap some of the things she said. Most importantly, some of the Zen practices that she talked about. And she mentioned that Zen, Zazen is a word for sort of a seated meditation, and the practices that Zen provides work very, very well with Christian practices too. We can think of a lot of the Buddhist practices of meditation as enhancements to our own Christian journey too. And there is a tremendous history of Christian mystics as well, the Desert Fathers and Mothers, who went out to do sort of very Buddhist things in monasteries by turning inward to connect to God, to find the Christ within. So I know that I'm mixing a lot of phrases from both Buddhism and Christianity and even Judaism together here, but I don't know any other way to emphasize just how similar these teachings are and how sort of naturally they fit together and support one another on our journey. So Sensei Lori mentioned that it's important for us to sort of step back and slow down and get out of the world. To quiet ourselves so that we can connect to this divine source that we agree is sort of the source of our existence and the motivating energy of our existence, God. And one of the ways that we can step back is to just kind of intentionally remove ourselves from our daily activities. Some other countries practice sort of different workday style where they'll work for part of the day, and then maybe take an extended break in the afternoon, and then work for some more hours in the evening. A lot of my job involves writing and creating, and I find also that can only happen in segments that need breaks in between. Even if that break means doing some other pastoral job, it's something other than the creative process, right? And when we talk about connecting to God, going within, connecting to the infinite awareness of the universe, really going beyond what is real, that's a creative process, so it can be draining. So we also need to find time to kind of find recourse to relax and to make space out of our daily grind work, or even if it's work that we love, we need to make space to just quiet down and get all of it, so that we can just make space for a sort of intimate relationship with God. So removing oneself from daily activity is an important practice. She also says that a clear and sustained effort to engage in practices that help us disengage sort of from the world around us is important. And we agree that practices like prayer and meditation and study of scripture, or anything that inspires you, and again, important times of reflection, these are all things that help us kind of step out of being in the world all the time and being distracted by it, and maybe even being depressed and frustrated by it. The events of the day are tumultuous, to say the least. And the meditative practices, no matter our religion or our spiritual path, can really help us deal with the stresses of the everyday world and remind us that there is more than meets the eye, ear, nose. There's more than just our senses are aware of. So by tuning into God, by using these, by being intentional to step back away sometimes and really tune into God, it can make a difference in our overall well-being. Sensei Lori also said that, it's important that as we're practicing these things that we have support from like-minded communities and teachers, because the spiritual journey is difficult, and we form into spiritual communities in order to help each other on the journey. And this is part of the reason that I am always like to encourage people from other faith traditions to come in and talk to our congregation, because we can learn so much from one another and integrate each other's practices into our own sort of rituals. So as we've been talking about light at the beginning of Advent, and searching for that inner light that then gives us the courage to go out into the world and share God's love with everybody else, I have found these Zen Buddhist meditation practices extremely useful. And I'm very thankful to Sensei Lori for coming to the Current this week and sharing her practices and her knowledge of Zen with us. And I'm thankful to the congregation for being willing to sort of take the Zen approach from a Christian perspective. I would like to also add to this that I don't think that Jesus would be surprised by any of this, or by the fact that a congregation is practicing a little bit of Zen. I wouldn't be surprised if he practiced a little bit himself. Again, I have always found incredible similarities between Jesus and Buddha, the things that they teach and the way that they lived their lives, in selfless service to everybody else. So it shouldn't be unexpected to us that Jesus has some of these what we would now call Buddhist tendencies. Buddhist was around and preaching and teaching 500 years before Jesus. I think it's logical to assume that Jesus would have been at least exposed to Buddha's teachings, if not very familiar with them. So that, combined with his Jewish background, I think creates this sort of new spiritual blend. He starts to create, or perhaps even remember, a more mystical Judaism. And as time goes on, and Paul has a mystical experience as well, I think that Christianity develops a very mystical sort of attitude. There is this idea that Christians can also go within through deep prayerful meditative practices, by reading scripture deeply and intentionally, and that we can connect to this Christ-like experience. That idea sort of lost favor over the millennia, but it is authentic to our Christian heritage to meditate, to look for connection to God. And I think Jesus really encourages us all to find these quiet spaces where we can step back from the noise of the world and remember that God is with us, and even with the people who disagree with us. And remember that if we go to each other in love, if we remember ultimately that our neighbors are ourselves, and to look each other in the eye with the love of Jesus and the knowledge that each of us are God, as Buddha teaches us, the Namaste Godhead, recognizing the divine within each of us, then I think we make huge strides in actually making some progress toward a world of peace and love that's intentional about making things better for all of us. So I hope that you'll spend a little time with today's Intersect reading Pastor Lori, Sensei Lori's post about some Zen practices that can help us on our spiritual journey. And as we continue journeying through Advent, I hope that you will find plenty of space to connect with the inner light of God, so that it will encourage you and inspire you as we spread the already present yet always coming light of Jesus to the world, not only throughout this holiday season, but hopefully all the days of our lives. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, please fill them out in the box below, and I'll comment as soon as I am able. And I'll remind you too that communities like the Current are 100% supported by generous donations from people like you. So if you like what we're doing here online, if you like our food bank program in Naples that's serving thousands of people a month, and if you have a couple of cents that you can spare, we appreciate any amount that you can donate to us. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget, tonight at 7 p.m., I'll be on Intersect Live with an interview with Nancy Van Fleet, who is the Director of Youth at Naples Presbyterian Church downtown. She also has a fascinating spiritual journey to share, so I hope you'll tune in then. Otherwise, I'll see you next week, same place, Facebook Live at noon. Thank you. Namaste.